This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's access media station, Plains FM, and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
It's time for Emergence News on Plains FM 96.9, citizen-made radio.
Kia ora koutou, greetings and welcome to Emergence News, wherever you might be in the world. We are broadcasting today from sunny but cold Ōtautahi Christchurch on the South Island of Aotearoa, New Zealand. It seems that after an unusually warm autumn, winter has finally arrived. Emergence News has been broadcasting now for 7 years. We have been hosted, supported and encouraged by the wonderful team here on Plains FM, whose dedication to community radio and giving voice to the local people is an astounding act of love and service. And today we'll be talking about love versus fear. Firstly, let me tell you a little about Emergence News. We, your hosts, that's Nigel, Peter, John and myself, Shafia, are 4 of the Christchurch-based group of a larger global group of volunteers who back in the day heard a story from a man called Benjamin Creme. It was about the fact that Maitreya the World Teacher for this coming age of Aquarius is now living in the world as a man among men. We would, I suspect, have heard this story a little differently to most people, as anyone who is involved in telling the story about Maitreya has incarnated in this lifetime to just do that. I know for me it was a case of, oh yes, I know that. According to Benjamin Creme, around 4,700 people were recruited for this work and not all have taken it up. So it's not our job to recruit followers or to convince you what we say is true. Everyone will have their own way of receiving or rejecting the information we share. We respect that and share it anyway because we believe it is a message of hope and salvation for the world. If this is the first time listening to this program or hearing about Maitreya, you might well wonder, so what is this message of hope? It is a message of great importance that is and will affect every human being on this earth. Most of the world's religions have the expectation that their particular deity will return to earth, an event we all know as the Second Coming. For Christians, it's the Christ. Hindus, it's Krishna. For some Muslims, the Kalki avatar. Those of the Jewish faith, the Messiah. And for Buddhists, it is Maitreya Buddha. Maitreya, whose name means the happy one, is the expected one from all these traditions. As the ever-coming one of ancient prophecies, he comes to help humanity at times of trial and turmoil that precede a great leap in our evolutionary progress. We are preparing for a great leap in our consciousness, one that will finally bring our rejection of war and separation as a way to solve our challenges. It will be a time when we recognize our interdependence as one human family. Maitreya is not here as a religious leader. He embodies the Christ energy, the great principle of love. He comes as the Christ, however, a Christ that comes for every person, whatever their faith or creed, whatever their belief or non-belief. As the world teacher, he will show that our spiritual nature is inherent in every aspect of human affairs. His major focus at this time is with the economic and political spheres, as that is where change needs to happen for us to truly change the world. With him come a band of perfected men, known variously as the Lords of Compassion, the Illumined Minds, the Ascended Masters. We usually refer to them on this program as the Masters of Wisdom. We are told that there are 14 here, also living in cities around the globe. They have been the stimulus for the incredible, fast-moving pace of change and innovation that has been sweeping the world. The presence of these great beings among us is a beacon of hope. There is lots happening in the world that could cause us to feel despair and hopelessness. We humans are prone to fear of loss, fear of change, fear of difference. We cling to what we know, feeling safer with whatever is familiar, even though we know deep down things could be better if they were different. Maitreya comes as the great Lord of Love. He is stimulating this love principle in each one of us. It is this love aspect that we are focusing on today. Love is the antidote to fear. Love is the forward way for humanity. So Peter's away this week, so we've got Nigel back in the studio. It's really lovely to see you again, Nigel. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Shafia. Thank you very much for that kind introduction.
And what are you going to do for us today?
Well, you've touched on it already.
So we can go? Let's go. Come on, it's cold.
Oh, it's quite a wand. She will, she said. No, I'm looking at chaos. What are the answers?
Yes.
And you've talked about the complacency and the reluctance, the inertia that's amongst a lot of humanity, and the difficulty we have wrestling ourselves away from our routines,
Yes.
which are so comfortable.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to be, asking questions such as, how is our health crisis related to the health of the planet?
Right.
And I'll be looking at the Sheer International magazine, the latest issue that came out last month, April 2021, and there's several articles there that talk about solutions to the chaos that surrounds us physically, politically, and economically.
Lovely. Look forward to it. And John, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Nice to see you, Nigel.
Thank you.
I'm going to deal with cooperation, and cooperation as an expression of goodwill, and you've touched on love, Shafia, and cooperation, Nigel, as a way out of chaos. So tied in nicely.
Okay, Nigel, let's hear from you.
Right, so chaos, what are the answers? As I said before, we're going to sort of look at an article in the latest Sheer International magazine and looking at the chaos that surrounds us. And I suggest to you that most of us have an understanding of the problems and have a reasonably good idea of what we need to do. I think one of the problems is we still suffer from a reluctance to change. Making Peace with Nature, Humanity's To-Do List. It's by Stephen Leahy. He's an award-winning environmental journalist with need-to-know science and insight. Making Peace with Nature is a blueprint report by author Sir Robert Watson from the UN Intergovernment Science Policy Platform, and he was also the co-chair of the UN Climate Change Panel. So what I'm going to do first up is have a look at the Humanity To-Do List that they've compiled, and then I'll give you a brief summary of the report itself. So the Humanity's To-Do List. What's to be done to end the multiple threats to civilization? And the article, the Humanity's To-Do List, is actually quite short. There's just 3 things. Reduce carbon dioxide, CO2 emissions by 45% by 2030. That's less than 9 years, people.
Wow.
Wow.
Conserve and restore biodiversity and minimise pollution and waste. And the pollution on the planet since the Industrial Revolution has just
Staggering.
exponentially, it's just staggering, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
The UN blueprint says achieving these 3 things requires, surprise, surprise, sweeping changes in governance and the economic and social organisation of society. So, as promised, I'm now going to look at the report itself with a brief summary. The report is called Making Peace with Nature. It's 170 pages long, but not an easy read despite the graphics. Not an easy read. Why? Because as we've already indicated, humanity has proven decade after decade we're really reluctant to move out of the comfort zone. We're so reluctant to change. So here's approximately 100 odd word summary of this blueprint. And there are 3 summaries. And the first one is, 1, transform the economic system. Note the word transform. Transform the economic system includes replacing GDP with genuine progress indicators.
Ooh.
What does that mean?
That sounds like a wellness budget.
It sounds a bit like Bhutan. They have, instead of a GDP, they have a
They do too.
They have a happiness indicator, don't they?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
They're more concerned about the happiness and well-being of their population.
Yeah.
Shift 5 trillion in harmful fossil fuel subsidies. Shift it to low-carbon energy, 5 trillion.
Ooh.
So that's the handouts the fossil fuel industry have coerced various governments on this planet to give them.
Banks, corporates.
Governments, Donald Trump's government, handing out millions to fossil fuel companies, which, may I remind everybody, are capitalist corporate entities whose process is to stand alone from government and earn income for themselves.
Large income, to hell with the environment.
It's disgusting.
Shift business and societal incentive structures to reflect the value of nature and create green jobs. As I said earlier, this information isn't new.
No.
But we're just, well, I was about to say we're not listening, but in many cases, much of humanity is listening, but we're not shifting that into action.
We're not shifting it into government. Governments aren't shifting it. You know, it's the
Yes.
political will, isn't it? You know,
Yes.
that's not working.
There's still not the political will.
Yes, Nigel, and I would say a lot of people on this planet are as concerned as we are. However, oligarchy, which is big corporations, wealthy families, and their government politician lackeys, are not willing to change their income stream.
And that's where the power of lobby
Yes.
is, and it's very hard to change their minds, isn't it?
So we're talking revolution, aren't we?
We are.
It needs
Non-violent
something like
revolution,
a general strike, you know. But then, could you get all the people to do it?
Because I think it's interesting that the three areas that I'm going through here, the word they use each time is transform, because it does require a revolution.
Yeah.
Because the second area, number 2, is transform finance and investments. Just what we were talking about. Banks, pension funds and others stop investing in environmentally harmful activities.
Great stuff, Nigel.
Base financial regulations and incentives so that they serve to enhance forests, wetlands, soil conservation and freshwater systems. So it's a complete turnaround, transformation of activity. And the third area is transform, wait for it, John will like this, governance. Transform governance.
Seething over here.
Governments continue to fail to protect the future well-being of their citizens. So countries and institutions need to shift to collaborative forms of decision-making involving a full range of actors in the public, private and civil society sectors.
Oh, Nigel, come on. You're talking democracy. Come on. It's not going to happen.
But even democracy is not safe at all at times, is it?
Democracy's long gone, bought and sold.
Now, just touching on the COVID-19 pandemic, the report says the recovery from the pandemic crisis must be green. And of course, that's not new information, is it? They say a green recovery plans for pandemic hit economies. It's an unmissable opportunity to accelerate this transformation needed. The COVID-19 crisis made it clear that the health of people and nature are intertwined, and it needs to alter how we view and value nature. So it's a need to know reality. People, industries and countries that are doing well right now are by and large not interested in these transformations, despite their being essential to sustain our future and well-being. And I put New Zealand in that category. Some will deny the need for any change. Others will agree, but insist change must be slow, so very slow, and that nothing actually changes.
Ooh.
So to finish, I'd like to say this: New Zealanders will need to shift their view that we are small and insignificant. We actually do matter. In fact, every nation matters, regardless of size or population, to help change worldviews, norms and values, especially regarding the health of our planet. Nature is spiralling out of control. Just ask the Aussie farmers in New South Wales at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, the rodents, and they say the snakes are next.
Yeah. Isn't there something biblical in there?
Yes.
Rats and snakes and it's pouring out of the land. Oh, Armageddon.
One of our politicians said this week that every government minister must be a climate change minister. That wasn't bad, was it, for a politician?
Yeah. Thank you, Nigel. You've got me seething and angry, and I actually arrived in quite a good mood.
I actually think here in New Zealand, our greatest problem could well be our apathy and complacency.
Yes.
I'm all right, Jack.
Pink Floyd said that back in 1973.
And they were right.
This is the Emergence News on Plains FM. For more information, go to shareinternational.org.
Well, thank you so much, Nigel. That was interesting. Lots of food for thought there. What do you
really
got for
upset us both. Okay, Shafia, I want to talk about love as the answer to fear, cooperation versus competition, but I'm so wound up about what Nigel said, I don't know if I can get love going. Okay.
They call me Chuckles.
Cooperation versus competition. This is a staggering topic that Benjamin Creme returns to time and time again. In fact, he's written a book about the art of cooperation, which is a truly, truly beautiful read. However, I went to my favourite resource, the Share International website, typed in the word cooperation and got pages and pages of stuff. This idea of cooperation and sharing and right relationship all have their roots in an individual's ability or inability to manage their fear. Fear is from the ego, the personality, and is an experience that soul contact and increasing soul contact overcomes. I've already mentioned Benjamin Creme's book, The Art of Cooperation, which really going forward, anybody that wants to start a spiritual life or start to change the way they view the world, that book, The Art of Cooperation, completely transcends I was going to say religious or spiritual, but it is a way to apply an attitude to your life. It's a stunning book. Stunning book.
It will enhance your current thinking,
Yes.
won't it?
Yeah.
Rather than contradict it.
Yes, and it's about a technique to pick up rather than a spiritual belief. It actually transcends the author himself. It's quite amazing. Okay, cooperation is something we take for granted. We all think we do it. Well, we don't. And Mr. Creme and his master has some interesting observations. So he's asked a number of questions around this topic. And Benjamin Creme tells us the fundamental basis of competition is fear. We see through fear every person as a potential enemy, someone to put us down, to make us afraid, someone who is threatening to us in some way. He goes on to say the opposite of that is where there is total trust, total acceptance of life as we experience it and are experiencing it, competition and the fear which drives it does not raise its head. We are either demonstrating who and what we are or we are not. It is one or the other. If we are constantly demonstrate who and what we are, which is a soul in incarnation, then inevitably, at whatever point in evolution we may be, that quality of soul will demonstrate. So he's tagging cooperation as an expression of soul contact. The master says the people of the world can be divided into two kinds, and I love this kind of snapshot of an idea: those who compete and those who cooperate. Benjamin Creme picks up on that and he says that is an extraordinary statement. It seems to me to be the crucial statement of this whole discussion and an extraordinary measure of the state of play in the world. This was written in 1984. The readiness of the world for change. Two great forces exist today, and we've talked about this sort of cleavage previously on this program. In one corner, we have the reactionaries, looking backward because they love the past, grimly holding on to the old, the useless, that which is breaking down and falling apart. And those who see that the only way forward is through cooperation, who come into incarnation ready to cooperate because they are disciples and initiates. It is in the hands of these disciples and initiates who make up the new group of world servers that the future of the world depends. And that article that you've just picked your way through, Nigel, is very much about these two competing ideas. Old, hanging on to it, clinging on for dear life, and something new must come through. He's asked about how people get over this, and I've never seen this before from Benjamin Creme. Benjamin Creme says, people love fighting. I believe that we're only a tiny bit civilized, and I agree with him. I think the civilized veneer on humanity is very, very thin. I think we really are mostly intelligent animals. I think most of humanity are mad because they are souls in animal bodies. The human bit, the soul aspect, does not fit well yet with the animal aspect. This is the crisis, the spiritual crisis for humanity. So what he's saying is cooperation is a major challenge because of the way we're constructed. We are beings of spirit shoved into this material matter environment, and it's really challenging for us on many ways. He goes on to say, sharing the world's resources will restore sanity to the world. It will make life happier for most people. There is no reason why people should think they will suffer from the principle of sharing. So he's tying sharing and cooperation and goodwill together. So that expression of goodwill, that soul-based expression of goodwill, expresses and contributes to cooperation. So there's no reason why people should think they will suffer from the principle of sharing. And Benjamin Creme says, go out and talk to people about this. Because actually, if we do start sharing and cooperating, most people on the planet will live better and happier lives. And of course, those that won't are those that are clinging to the dream, or those that are so rich that they fear loss.
I think the problem is with humanity is that you feel as if you're sharing that you're losing something.
Yes.
Isn't it? It's like it's not that you're gaining, you know, that you feel if you're giving something away, you're going to be the loser. And actually it's not that.
Yes. And that's the fear aspect.
Yes.
But what Creme is saying is when you start to share and when you start to cooperate, you open up channels of creativity and energy that is literally unknown to humanity currently. And so he said the creativity that comes out of cooperation is a marvel we have yet to really see on this planet.
And the parable, the loaves and fishes showed that, didn't it? I mean, that was a very wonderful example of, people sharing.
There was
and
plenty.
Suddenly this huge crowd, everybody had enough to eat,
Yes. Yeah.
And this is not educated. This isn't in our education system. We are educated to attack each other, to compete with each other.
From a very young age. In fact, Nigel...
And that squeezes out the creativity, doesn't it?
Yeah, you've just picked up, because Creme, not only does he say we're animals, but then he comes back and says, actually, the reason for it is conditioning. So he's kind of saying to us, actually, guys, you've been put in this situation. Now's the time to change. He goes on to say, everyone in today's very imperfect society is conditioned. Every parent conditions their children in the way they were conditioned. We are passing on our conditioning all the time. We can't help it. We have to be very aware, very sensitive and intelligent to realise what we are doing. And I guess that's where Maitreya's honesty, sincerity and detachment come in, even as a parenting tool. Benjamin Creme goes on to say we have to create the conditions of cooperation through our children at the earliest possible age. He goes on to talk about nurseries and kindergartens that are trying to run on this basis. And he said the problem they have is as soon as two children want to share the same toy, the same activity, this kind of inherent, deeply ingrained competitive spirit comes through. And it's very difficult for that to be managed. He actually goes on to say that an old, primal, primitive man with his instinct to compete and to get through the desire principle the things that they think they need. Every child was a little savage until they're about the age of 14. Now, I found that very interesting because I have a teenager, and Creme talks a lot about not trying to teach spiritual philosophies or ideas until the child is 14 and over.
Demonstrate it.
Yes. Be who you are, honest, sincere and detached. And he's saying if we're lucky, he's very funny. If we're lucky, he turns from a savage into something between a savage and a civilized person. And anybody that's raised teenagers will be jumping around the lounge going, I know exactly what he's talking about. Now, he goes on to say the soul has total, absolute goodwill. It only knows divine intelligence, divine love, divine purpose. Goodwill is an aspect of love. It is the purpose of God and the love of God together that is the essential love. The soul tries to inculcate this in its vehicle. This leads to cooperation. When you cooperate, you tend to express the quality of goodwill. They work together. The more cooperative you become, the more goodwill you express. The more goodwill you express, the more you want to cooperate. It's easy to cooperate if you have goodwill. it's difficult to cooperate when you're working under the desire principle. And that's what you were talking about, Shafia, that when you have the desire to accumulate and possess, it's fearful to let that go because it's change.
That's right.
It feels different.
Yep. Okay. So he goes on to say, and I love the way he finishes this stuff off, the scourge of competition is based on two things, greed and fear. Greed is the outcome of fear. Fear is the basic fundamental expression of that which is against life. When you take away fear, you release the energy of life.
So I'm just going to close today's program with a part of a message that Maitreya gave us. And he says, "May it not be that you have heard of love before, yet find it difficult to manifest. Why should this be so, my friends, when your nature is love itself? Essentially, you are God and love are one. Manifest that which you are, my brothers and sisters, and become the gods that you are. There is no quicker way to God than through the manifestation of love, justice, and service. Serve and grow in love, my friends, and realize your Godhead."
All this information can be found on the Share International website, www.share-international.org. Scorpio Books in Christchurch carries the magazine and some books. And also don't forget the podcasts, which are available on the Plains FM website.
We welcome your comments, questions and feedback. Please contact us at emergencenews@gmail.com.
The opportunity to join our transmission is available Monday and Wednesday evenings and Thursday mornings, which gives us the possibility to do a service meditation in conjunction with Masters.